Now, am I going live right now? This is very, very funny. It seems like I'm actually going live, and you guys have gotten to witness me adjusting my microphone for the past couple of minutes. What do you think about that? I guess you've got a great view of my shoulder and the backdrop and the camera wiggling and wobbling and waving back and forth. So I guess the surprise has been blown. So I might as well just kind of give up all pretense and scoot on over here and say, hi, everybody, it's me, your old pal Malcolm Tent, bringing you the latest episode of Tent Talks Tunes. What do you think of them apples? Oh, boy, my pal Jenny them apples. Oh, boy, my pal Jenny DeSoto in New Jersey is getting a big laugh out of that. Ha, 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 ha. As well you should, Jenny. And let's see, Robbie Rob is tuned in, and Alan Versapellis, and there's Robbie Rob twice. Yeah, boy, howdy. Brandon Yitai, who is soon going to be one of the hardest working men in show business. Oh, yeah. As Robbie would say, nice shoulder. I'm going to pat myself on it for being such a master of the technical difficulties of bringing you the finest in streaming live entertainment, keeping the spirit of cable access TV alive and well here in Danbury, Connecticut. Looks like I'm still a little bit crooked. Let's adjust that ever so slightly. Isn't this great? You guys get to experience all this. Rune Arledge is currently scratching at his coffin lid, trying to get out. Looking at these production values, and Fred Silverman's right behind him. So anyway, yeah, it's Tent Talks Tunes. Hey, that was a very sort of inauspicious beginning, but it was a beginning. And we are now ready to begin. Who else is tuned in? Tyson Markley, from the Fantastic Plastics, he says that he has seen Crookeder. No doubt. Anybody who reads the newspaper or actually watches the news has seen plenty crookeder than my television screen. Oh, boy, howdy. So much going on here. We're in crunch mode, kids. I got to take a swig at this good Danbury tap and stay hydrated. Good hydration is what is going to get me through the next week or so. 10 days of activity. Crazy stuff going on, and it's all right here on the bulletin board. So let's begin by looking at ye bulletin board. Very easy to stay in chronological order today, gang, because it's happening just a couple of days. The Devotional 2023 Devo Fan Gathering. Lots of bands playing. We've got the Fantastic Plastics. We got Detention. We got Fight Milk. We got some bands playing. We've got the Fantastic Plastics. We got Detention. We got Fight Milk. We got me. Yes, I'm playing a set. That's one reason why things are ultra double hectic around here. I was informed about a week ago that the stage time on Friday was kind of lacking. They needed someone to perform. Would I please do it? I said, sure. But then it took me a few days to decide what I was going to do. You know, it's like I really don't like to repeat myself. I hate doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm very proud of the fact that when I play my solo sets, which is me and no one else on stage, I like doing solo acoustic. I've never repeated the same set twice, ever. And we'll get to that sort of ethos in a minute when we get to the main meat of 10 Talks Tunes tonight. Last year, I did a tour with my good pal Tim Holhouse. We did a little circuit around New England, and I did my Unwanted Devo set, which was a rarity and a new thing for me because I ended up playing that same set every single night. But that was electric, and I had a sampler and a definite concept behind it. So, okay, I let myself slide on that one. But, you know, I've played the Devotional a number of times, and I think it's really important not to repeat myself, especially when there's a lot of repeat people in the audience. They don't want to see the same thing over and over again, I'm pretty sure. And I like to challenge myself and stretch myself, so it took me a few days to come up with a new concept, a brand new concept. And the concept is embodied in what was going to be my introductory card tonight. Take a look at that. That is a genuine cut and paste, not even paste, taped together. I took a couple of old Danbury Record and CD Expo flyers from years gone by and taped them together in a distressed sort of, I don't know, what would you call it, distressed way, and made a sign that said DEVO, because the set I'm going to be playing at the devotional is punk rock. The theme is punk rock is totally Devo. Now, Devo would completely disavow any alliance or knowledge or empathy for such a trivial thing as punk rock. But there's no denying that there are similarities, there are parallels, and the very essence of punk rock is very devolved. So in that spirit, I got my electric guitar, I got a drum machine, and I've got 10 stripped down, snarling, nasty, angry interpretations of deep Devo cuts. And you're going to have to be a real fan to recognize some of these songs, and that's what makes it doubly fun for me. So there you go. That's going to be Friday night, September 22nd at the devotional. I'm going to be snarling and pissing and spitting venom. The next day, the 23rd, is the all-day, all-night day of devotional. That's when the various bands are mostly going to be playing. Because Friday night, we've got the Fantastic Plastics, who are the headliners. I'm going on right before them. There's a band called Devoid, who I believe are from North Dakota, which should be pretty interesting. And a fourth band, whose name I don't remember. And then Saturday, we've got Detention, Fight Milk. The great Poopy Necropond will be representing himself with a brand new group. DJ Lance Rock is going to have a Q&A session. The dude from Futurismo Records in England is going to have a Q&A session. It's going to be pretty dang cool. We will also be debuting for the world, for purchase, the Devoted LP. It's got a front. It's got a back. It's got an inside. It's on stunning blue vinyl. What do you think about that artwork, Mr. Tyson, Fantastic Plastic? Yes, he did that. And there's only 255 of them made. One entire side of this thing is devoted to performances by Mr. Gerald V. Casali, co-founder of Devo. Also on hand is his fellow co-founder, Bob Lewis, a.k.a. Bob Zero. Zero being an integral number that begins the entire numbering system. Before there was Bob 1, before there was Bob 2, there was Bob 0. First time on stage in 40 years for those guys, and it's documented right here on vinyl and CD, which is a smaller version of the LP, and just as wonderful. So that's one of the many, 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 many attractions of the devotional. And let's see, Robbie Rob has a comment. Robbie says, yeah, record it. Alan says, I hope it gets recorded. Well, guess what? I have heard rumors, maybe even more than rumors, that the entire event, the entire devotional, is going to be streamed live on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I saw a post of that in today's packing and prepping frenzy for the devotional and for the other huge event that I'm doing. So I think if you guys look at Devo Obsesso, the website, and or Michael Pilmer, that's Michael Pilmer, his Facebook page, or the devotional Facebook page, somewhere on there you're gonna see a link. There's gonna be a live YouTube stream of the entire event. I'm pretty sure both Friday and Saturday nights. So all you guys out there who can't make it and want a live stream, dreams come true. You just have to dig around a little bit, search, you'll find it. Right on? Right on. So as if that's not enough, and I forgot to mention the 23rd is my birthday. So if you want to send me birthday wishes, give me birthday wishes in person at the devotional, I'll be there, guys. I will be there. And if anybody wants to try to take a guess at how old I'm going to be, please feel free to post your comments. Mike Lesser, who just tuned in from Vancouver, BC, might know. How old do you think this guy is? How old do you think I am? What year of life on this planet am I going to mark next Saturday, the 23rd? Thank you, Robbie, for the birthday greetings. How old do you think I am? Just curious to see guesses because I'm lousy at this game. Whenever anybody says, "Oh, how old do you think I am?" I'm gonna get it wrong. That's just all there is to it. I ain't gonna get it right. Period. Ain't happening. Mike Lesser says, mentally 12. Thanks, Mike. Coming from you, a definite compliment. And I take it as such. Maybe we should just give up on the age guessing game. It's probably not going to go very well, is it? It's probably going to devolve completely into some real bullshit. Miranda, yeah, thank you, Miranda, from Future Hate in Mobile, Alabama. She was going to guess 12. Alan says 30. Jerry Walker says 53. That's a pretty good guess. Andy Miller guesses 59. That's a very good guess. Very good guess. We'll just leave it at that. Oh, wait. Actually, Mike Lesser says it best. Age schmage. You're as young as you rock. So I indeed must be about 12 years old. So yeah, it's my birthday, devotional, and then from devotional, I am driving straight down to the Carolinas to do preparation for the Antiseen 40th anniversary show. This is a big one, kids. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6. That's 6. Count them, 6 lineups of Antiseen will be represented. You're going to hear a top 40 career retrospective of Antiseen hits, all the way from the newest album, Great Disasters, all the way back to the first EP, entitled, appropriately enough, Drastic. You're going to see numerous former band members of Antiseen, the Ultra lineup. We, the ones who made the new album Great Disasters, will be playing 2 complete sets. It's going to be a marathon. And everybody's been working real hard to make it a super special, extra Acme event. Literally once in a lifetime. This is the kind of hyperbole that gets tossed around a lot when, you know, something is called once in a lifetime. This is once in a lifetime. There never will be another Antiseen 40th anniversary. It is simply not going to happen. It is simply not going to happen. And, you know, I hate to say it, but, you know, the human organism being what it is and the law, but, you know, the human organism being what it is and the laws of mortality being what they are, there's no guaranteeing that all of us who are playing at the 40th are going to be there for the 50th. You know, and I risk being grim when I say that, but that's just the reality of the situation. Hopefully we all will be. I mean, that would be ideal if everybody could be there for the 50th. But it's not a good idea to assume. And besides, you got to carpe diem. You got to seize the moment in a Baron von Raschke claw. You have to seize the moment. You have to seize the moment and grab the anniversary show while you can. 40th anniversary, Ground Zero, Spartanburg. It's our home away from home. Opening acts, Sweet Georgia Brown and Joe Buck Yourself. Spartanburg, it's our home away from home. Opening acts, Sweet Georgia Brown and Joe Buck Yourself. That is 3 Class A acts. And as if me debuting the Devoted LP wasn't enough on the 23rd, on the 30th I'll be debuting not 1 but 2 versions of the Antiseen People's Choice album. It will be available exclusively at the Antiseen 40th anniversary show. I've had a lot of requests and questions as to whether or not any of these will be for sale to the general public, and the same thing for Devoted. If there's anything left after Devoted, and there's anything left after the 40th, they will go to the public. So, anything is possible in this crazy world of ours. Crazy, crazy world. 135 copies with an orange motif, including, you guessed it, orange vinyl and an orange insert. Note the attention to details. 135 of those bad boys. And then 300 of these with a blue motif. blue stamp and tasty blue vinyl. And a blue insert as well. We just love cranking out the releases, man. We just love it. The more releases, the better. That is the Antiseen corporate motto. And we definitely live by it. So that's what's happening for yours truly over the next 10 days. And I haven't even mentioned the Counterweight Record Show, October 8th, and the Danbury Record and CD Expo, October 21st. I hate being bored. I like to keep busy. Let us have a toast to staying busy. My main dog, Art Ettinger, was in attendance at the People's Choice recording session, and he says, quote, and I quote you, "That show was so fucking good." Art is a smart man. If he says it, you can take it to the bank. Thank you, Art, for the ringing endorsement. What you're talking about. All right, that was the bulletin board. We've got just a short little bulletin board. We've got just a short little list of things to check on in the mailbox today. 2 items exactly, and they're both really cool. I'm looking forward to opening these things. Let me grab the 100,000 mile box cutter here. Opening these things. Let me grab the 100,000 mile box cutter here. We all know the Million Mile Scissors. I'm giving them a break tonight, and I'm doing the Mile Scissors. I'm giving them a break tonight, and I'm doing the 100,000 mile box cutter. The box cutter opens the packages, in this case, about 5.5 inches at a time. And those 5.5 inches sure add up. So here we go. This is from my good pal, depending on the day of the week. He might be known as Mike Asherman. He might be expressing himself as his alter ego, Joe Schlabotnik. Now, Joe Schlabotnik is definitely a connoisseur of the absurd. He might be known as Mike Asherman. He might be expressing himself as his alter ego, Joe Schlabotnik. Now, Joe Schlabotnik is definitely a connoisseur of the absurd. I think if you're going to go overall, pound for pound, ounce for ounce, inch for inch, probably my single favorite genre of music is absurd. I love the absurd. And Joe and I have known each other for a number of years, and we have definitely bonded over our mutual love for music of the absurd. So in this envelope, which you just saw me slice open, which I am now opening up before your very eyes, before your disbelieving, gobsmacked, awe-stricken eyes. Oh, not only one, not one, but two CD compilations, and a handwritten note from his alter ego, Mike, of what is guaranteed to be really some insane stuff. And it looks like we have a... oh, yes. 2 discs dedicated to religious music. Yes, religious music of all stripes and all sorts. And, you know, you can talk about politics. You can talk about religion. No matter what you think about politics, no matter what you think about religion, no matter which side you're on, you got to know and you got to acknowledge and you got to be totally aware that there is plenty of absurdity to be found in each category. So yes, 2 religiously absurd compilations, no doubt hand-picked by the selector himself, Joe Schlabotnik. This is going to be great when I've got that long drive to Cleveland, Ohio, and then that long drive from Cleveland to Charlotte, and then that long drive from Charlotte back home. I have a suspicion that these are going to get a lot of play in my CD player. So Joe Schlabotnik, thank you very much. Also Mike Asherman, thank you very much. It is now my job and my duty to attempt some kind of reciprocation. It's going to be tough. Some kind of reciprocation. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I'm the man who's got everything, but I think old Joe has probably got more everything than I do, so we'll see. Joe Schlabotnik, if you're out there, do you have... We'll see. Joe Schlabotnik, if you're out there, do you have any of the records by Dr. Michael Dean, the singing hypnotist? Just let me know. A simple yes or no will do. Because if the answer is no, I think I got a treat for you. And anybody who's looked at my Facebook page over the last week or so, do yourselves a favor, go scroll back and look at my humble little post about Dr. Michael Dean, the singing hypnotist. If you like the absurd, I guarantee satisfaction. Second thing that came in the mail was triggered by a book that I found at the local library sale. Newtown, Connecticut has got the Serenius H. Booth Library. It's a wonderful library. I love to go there and poke through the stacks. And every year they have a benefit book sale. And, you know, even though I'm the guy who's trying really hard to clear my house of stuff, I like to support the library and I like to browse the books. And, you know, occasionally maybe find something good to read. And I only bought one book this time, and that was something that I never knew there was a book about. And that was a detailed, in-depth biography of Florence Foster Jenkins, the world's worst opera singer. And that is a sobriquet which is 100% accurate. And I only knew of her because I found one of her one and only full-length LP at a thrift shop a bunch of years ago. And it was called The Glory, ? Of the Human Voice. And that, of course, intrigued me. It was on RCA Red Seal. Okay, so someone at RCA Red Seal, even though RCA Red Seal refused to issue Lou Reed's Metal Machine Music as a legit classical album, they kind of redeemed themselves by issuing the Florence Foster Jenkins album. And that's one of those historical what-ifs. What if Metal Machine Music actually had come out on the RCA Red Seal label as a modern classical composition, which was what Lou Reed's original intention was? What if? Still my favorite Lou Reed album. And I'm not saying that to be funny or ironic or as a joke or anything. Metal Machine Music is my favorite Lou Reed album. Can I get an amen? Can I get a yeehaw? Can I get a huzzah? Is it possible? Is it humanly possible that anybody shares my opinion of Metal Machine Music? I'm going to squint at the screen there. I got a couple thumbs ups there. And that's it. Okay. The people have spoken. Anyway, RCA, major label. You know my opinion of the major labels. Fuck the major labels. But they do occasionally get something right. They did do a Florence Foster Jenkins album. Heard the album. Loved the album. Saw the biography. It's a very well-written biography. If anything, it's perhaps too detailed about her life. And, you know, just the circumstances of her life. I actually ended up skimming through a lot of it because it was just... So I learned more about Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, reading that book than I ever thought I would ever know about Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be traveling through Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania on my way to and from Ohio and North Carolina. On my way back, when I've got some time, I fully intend to stop at the grave of Florence Foster Jenkins. She is buried there, and I really, really want to pay my respects at her gravesite to the world's worst opera singer. I'm definitely wanting to do that. So, let's see. What am I seeing here? Randy Ruffner says, hey, Malcolm, if I'm going to be in Asheville, you know what? I just might. I may very well. I'm going to be spending some time in Hickory, which is only about an hour or so down the road from Asheville. So, Randy, let's be in touch about that. Personal message me. I'll try my dangest to message you. Because if SD stands for Spanish dogs, like I think it does, There's going to be some good listening to be had there. Oh, yes, some good listening. And I know this song's not on the Spanish Dogs album, but I'm going to tell people right now about a South Florida band. These guys were a couple of years older than I was, and Randy Ruffner, who's tuned in right now, is one of them. The first time I ever heard of the Spanish Dogs was on the great radio program called Radio Free Living Room, hosted by the immortal Eric Moss. And Eric would go on late Monday nights on WLRN in Miami and play an hour, maybe 2 hours every week of the best underground, non-commercial music that a young lad like myself in the wastelands of South Florida could ever hope to hear. Radio Free Living Room was a lifeline. And one night, I heard on Radio Free Living Room, as I sat there poised with my cassette recorder with my finger on the pause button, just ready to release it, when I heard a good song that really caught my ear, I heard this really wild synthesizer and drum machine kick in. And then the chorus, I don't want to go to Cleveland. Never, never, never going to Cleveland. Cleveland, not real pretty, but there's something about that city. Loved that song. That was my introduction to the Spanish Dogs. And quintuply ironic that I spend so much time in Cleveland right now. Listening to that song as a young bambino in South Florida, Cleveland might as well have been Jupiter. And I don't mean Jupiter, Florida. It might as well have been Saturn, you know, because I'd never traveled on my own. I'd never really seen anything resembling the world. So I knew Cleveland was a city out there somewhere. And in the late 70s, it was reputed to be a complete and utter hell hole, which is why the Spanish Dogs did that song about Cleveland. And, you know, life is just funny. Cleveland is one of the towns that I frequent an awful lot, and I like Cleveland. I like it. But I still love that Spanish Dog song. So, Spanish Dogs albums? Dude. Do you see what I'm doing here? I'm marking out. To Randy Ruffner, Pete Moss, and their fellow Spanish Dogs. That was a great digression. But now we're going to get back to the point of the matter, which was Florence Foster Jenkins got the album, read the book. That, of course, sent me on a research frenzy because I'm one of those completists. I just can't stop. And I learned that there was actually something I never knew existed. I'm going to use the box cutter very judiciously to slice open this envelope and reveal the contents. And I know I just said a minute ago that I'm a guy who's trying to divest of stuff. So what did I do? I bought a Florence Foster Jenkins book, and I bought a Florence Foster Jenkins biographical DVD, which looked really fascinating. A World of Her Own, which apparently focuses on the culture and the times of Florence Foster Jenkins, which should be really fascinating stuff. We're talking about late 1800s going up to about the mid 1940s, and how a phenomenon such as the world's worst opera singer could happen, did happen, and got documented. So I'm pretty excited about that. Brandon Yitai wants to know, was she actually that bad, or was it a gimmick? It was no gimmick. No gimmick. She was that bad. And it's kind of a mystery. And it's kind of a mystery as to how she got that bad. Because apparently, and I don't want to be a spoiler, apparently in her younger days, she was not a bad singer. Apparently not. And she definitely was musically trained and very well schooled. But somewhere along the line, something happened and her voice just went kaput. But she apparently just didn't notice. And she was also such a shaker and mover in New York City high society that people, let's just say, pretended to like her because she had the hand with the checkbook and the recommendations and the patronage. So they put up with her legitimately really bad singing, and it just kind of had a snowball effect. You know, for whatever reason, she didn't know she was bad, and then she had a million people telling her how great she was, so she kept going. And the result, look it up. Look up Florence Foster Jenkins. A bunch of her original 78s are posted on the YouTube. And once again, if you're like me and you love the absurdity, I guarantee satisfaction. Guarantee it. Yeah, Miranda, maybe she blew her voice out and went deaf. Who knows? Even though this book is like overly rich in some details, it is completely devoid of a lot of details because she took great pains to conceal a lot about her life. And many of her personal papers were either lost or destroyed shortly after she died. So the mysteries abound. But I just love the fact that there was a person like Florence Foster Jenkins and that her recordings survive. I think that's wonderful. I think she's got far more validity than your average Whitney, Britney, Adele piece of corporate manufactured plastic shit. You notice how pissed off I just got? Who wouldn't, in the face of such tedious corporate approved mediocrity passing itself off as music? Makes my middle fingers rise right up, baby. Florence Foster Jenkins forever. That other garbage I just mentioned, never. Never. Good thing I never got a taste of alcohol, man. Drinking the water is habit forming enough when I get PO'd. My goodness, what a long soliloquy that was. We went from Florence Foster Jenkins to the Spanish Dogs to three ridiculous plastic divas whose names I'm not going to mention again on my program because my program's a high-class program. Huh! What do you say we get down and do some tent talking tunes? How about it? So if you guys have been watching my show for the past several weeks, you know that I've been in the middle of a huge, gigantic, existential crisis. Huge. Out of control. The cause of that being that last week, was it only last week? God, seems like so much longer ago. Last week, I had to get my basement insulated because my little cabin in the woods here never had insulation. So it finally got to be ridiculous. The winters are very cold up here. I just had to get the basement insulated. In order to do that, everything had to come out of the basement and be put somewhere else, which meant my living room, my bedroom, my kitchen, my office. The house is clogged with boxes full of stuff. And I will be double darned if I take all these boxes of stuff, which I put in storage 11 years ago and 11 years and 1 week ago today when I moved into my new house, I'll be double darned if I take that stuff that I removed from the basement and simply put it back in the basement. I ain't doing it. It ain't happening. That is a task worthy of Sisyphus. And I am not Sisyphusian in my world outlook. I'm a practical dude. I'm a pragmatist. I'm a can-do sort of guy. So what is it that I can do? Well, what I can do is get all these boxes, which were pretty organized to start with, and make them really organized. And why would I want to get them really organized? Why would I want to spend all these times organizing boxes of wrestling magazines, boxes of comic books, boxes of zines, boxes of Cream magazine? Why would I want to organize all this stuff? Because once they're organized, I can start getting rid of most of it. I can put price tags on them and take them around to record shows and cool pop-up stores and flea markets and start selling the stuff. Time for it to go. So it's a big old task, but I've been working at it diligently, chipping away at it. And some of the boxes I came across contain cassettes, Lots of cassettes. Many, 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 many cassettes. Because I love cassettes. Can I get some reaction from the public? Does anybody out there love cassettes as much as I do? What do you people think of cassettes? Do you like cassettes? I love cassettes. Cassettes are a 100% populist DIY medium. It was the first. There's lots of thumbs up and hearts and smiley faces and maybe an angry face. I don't know. John Murray, record show. Damn right. You'll be seeing some of the results of my work at the Danbury Record Show and the Counterweight Record Show. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Certain things are going to stay, but if I have my druthers, a lot of it's going to go. So I came across these boxes of cassettes, and I was going through them, and I realized one thing. I always kind of knew, but never really thought about, never really quantified, was that when I had my store, Trash American Style, which opened up in late '86 and was shut down by the landlord in the summer of '87, we always catered to the underground. For many, many years, almost from the very beginning, I had a very strict no major label policy. The first year or so, I did sell major label stuff. And then, much to my chagrin, major label stuff started kind of creeping in the last couple of years. But by and large, the vast majority of what I did was non-major label, underground, DIY, independent, music, art, fashion, and culture. And the way I looked at it, I didn't really care what it was. So long as you were independent, so long as you were creative, as long as you were doing something original, it was fine by me. Independent, so long as you were creative, as long as you were doing something original, it was fine by me. Obviously, there are certain types of music that, I don't really care for. But that was the beauty of having my own record store, because I could put my own personal thumbprint on what we represented. And it was just really, I always got sort of a kick out of the fact that, especially up until about 1991, 92 or so, two of the biggest constituents, two of the biggest customer bases at Trash American Style were represented by a whole ton of these cassettes that I've been sifting through. Constituency number one, represented by this stack of tapes. When I say this stack of tapes, I mean this stack of tapes right here. Constituency number one, the Deadheads. Those fans of the Grateful Dead. Now, I'll be quite honest, when I opened up the store in late '86, I had no idea whatsoever. I mean, obviously I knew the Grateful Dead were a band. I knew that I knew they were a band, and I knew that they had this following called Deadheads. But I knew nothing about them, except that I was a punker, I was a punk rocker, and the Grateful Dead were reprehensible. I did go through a period where I suffered pretty badly from punk rock dogma. Luckily, I got over that. So I really knew nothing about them, except that the Grateful Dead were a bunch of hippies, and the Grateful Dead, since they were hippies, were not punk rock, and since they weren't punk rock, that wasn't cool. My mind was turned around by the very enthusiastic Deadheadism of, at my time, sister-in-law. She was a bona fide, 100% through and through Deadhead, and I'm pretty sure she still is. In fact, I know she still is. So, okay, I'm part of a family that has one real, honest-to-God, legit Deadhead, and two sisters, one of whom I was at the time married to, who were like sympathetic to it and kind of into it. So, all right, well, I'm sort of immersed in this, whether I like it or not. Let's see what it's all about. Let's give it a listen. I can't avoid it anyway. I'm going to have to be hearing it anyway, so let's check it out. And the way I checked it out was the way I ended up discovering a lot of my favorite music, my favorite bands, my favorite artists, was through the live recording. I've told the story many a time about how the first rock and roll album I ever heard and decided to buy of my own volition was Live Album by Grand Funk. I still get chills whenever I hear that record or see that album cover. But that was what formed my knowledge base about what made good music. Can the band kick it live? Are they great live? Well, then they must be a good band. And so, you know, a huge part of the Grateful Dead subculture was the tape trading. The Grateful Dead were one of those, at the time, very rare bands who not only allowed but actively encouraged their fans to record all the concerts and to trade them freely. They frowned upon them being sold, but they were absolutely 100% supportive of the fans reliving the experience. As they said it, they were sending this music out into the free air, and the free air was for everyone to use. And if the music was a part of that air, then so be it. I thought that was a really awesome way of putting it, and a great outlook when it came to things like documenting live performances. I thought that was really cool. So that kind of won me over a little bit, was their attitude towards it. And also just my own natural curiosity and my genuine love for the format of bootlegs, whether they were cassettes or LPs. You know, CDs weren't a thing at that time, but just the very existence of these objects really fascinated me. So my sister-in-law had a brick of 10 Grateful Dead cassettes. So I started to dig in. You know, she would either bring them down to the store, or when I still lived with her family at the time, she'd pop one in the cassette deck and we'd play them and stand on my skull and call me Shorty, but if I didn't really enjoy it, it was pretty good stuff. It was legitimately not like anything I'd ever heard before. It was a whole new type of music to my ears, and it was good. I liked it. I liked it a lot. And so by getting to know her more, and by paying careful attention to the people coming into my store, a lot of whom were Deadheads and wanted my store, a lot of whom were Deadheads and wanted Grateful Dead related stuff, I started getting a deeper appreciation for the music and the culture. And of course, you know, because of my worldview and the way I like to do things, a very deep appreciation for collecting Grateful Dead cassettes. Oops. Pardon me for 1 second. I always try to grab a big handful of cassettes and lift them out in the box. It never works. I always end up dropping a few. And so, imagine my delight when I found a box that I knew was in the basement somewhere. I knew it was there. In fact, I knew exactly where it was, but I just never went anywhere near it because I never had any reason to. But I was very happy to have to make way for the insulators. Found the original box. The original box. This one right here. Full of what was my personally curated Grateful Dead collection. Yes, this is the box. This was the original Grateful Dead collection I put together starting in 1986 and going all the way up until the early 90s. They're all here, including ones that I marked in yellow, which, if I remember correctly, were ones that I thought were particularly good. And as a matter of fact, the first tape that I dragged out of here, completely at random, was probably my single favorite live Grateful Dead tape, and that's a pastiche of shows recorded at the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island in May of 1980. I don't know how many dates they played there, but WLIR in New York did a 90-minute special documenting the best of that run of shows. And right around the same time that I fished this box out, I fished out a cassette deck that I forgot I had, one of my portable Tascam recorders that I used for recording shows on my own. I thought, oh, gee whiz, I haven't seen this Tascam in forever, and I haven't seen these Grateful Dead tapes in forever. Why don't I just grab a tape? Oh, wow, yeah, the Nassau Coliseum tape. Yeah, okay. And pop it in this Tascam and see if the Tascam works. And why don't we hear some Grateful Dead for the first time in years? Popped it in, hit play, the Tascam worked, the tape played beautifully, and lo and behold, it was effing good, man. It was good. They were on a real roll in May of 1980 at the Nassau Coliseum, and I was genuinely surprised. I was really surprised at how much I was enjoying it. I'd forgotten. I had really forgotten about how much I really, really liked the Grateful Dead. Now, of course, the Dead weren't always awesome. In my opinion, I think they probably peaked in the early 80s. I would say they peaked around 81, 82. And from then on, it was just like a really long, slow, gradual decline. Punctuated with moments of brilliance and punctuated with shows that were legitimately great. But, it's been pretty well documented now that Jerry was a mess. And, he was not a happy guy. The Grateful Dead was like an albatross around his neck. He had all kinds of problems. And that reflected in his playing and thus in the quality of a Grateful Dead performance. So it varied widely and wildly. Sometimes fantastic, sometimes terrible. And it's kind of funny because poking around online a little while ago, I only saw the Grateful Dead once, which was my birthday, 1991, in Madison Square Garden. And for years and years and years, I was trying to find a tape of that show. Because remember, pre-internet, everything was catch as catch can. So even though I've got a box like this of Grateful Dead cassettes, and I've got a whole legion of people coming into my store with their own Grateful Dead cassette collections, you only had access to what they had. And if they didn't have Madison Square Garden September 23rd, 1991, that was it. You were out of luck. You had to wait for the next taper to come in and see if they had that particular show in their collection. And if they didn't, you were out of luck. As a matter of fact, the closest I came to is right here. The closest I came to was a show from a few days prior, recorded, believe it or not, 32 years ago tonight. 32 years ago tonight, the Grateful Dead at Madison Square Garden on the 20th of September. So they played a solid week, if I remember correctly, and the only recording I could find was one from a few nights before the actual show I was at. That's what the life of a Deadhead or a tape collector was like in the pre-internet age. You really had to do your digging. You had to search. And so, long story longer, in the internet age, I was able to track down, finally, the show from September 23rd, 1991. Not only that, but about 10 different versions of it. They were all posted on, I think, archive.org. So you had, everybody who was rolling a recorder at Madison Square Garden that night has posted their own version of the show. But the Grateful Dead also posted their official direct from the soundboard recording. So I futzed around a little bit with some of the audience tapes. None of them were that great. I said, screw it. Why waste time? Let's go directly for the soundboard. Went to the soundboard recording. Man, fantastic recording. Fantastic recording. But oh my God, what a shitty fucking show it was. They sucked that night. I'm sorry. They were bad. They were real bad. That was a night that Jerry was not in good form. There was one shining moment. They do a version of Stuck Inside of Mobile with the Memphis Blues again, sung by Phil, and he kind of takes the piss out of it. That was great. Good performance. Phil, of course, was in good form. The band kind of rallied behind him. But other than that, it was pretty bad. So, well, okay, now I know. I've got the tape to prove it. But boy, howdy, when they were on, they were on. So it was a real treat to start going through these tapes again and find some of these shows that I really, really dug, man. Telluride, Colorado, August 18th, 1987. Well, here's a show from Madison Square Garden, September 18th, 1987. So I guess 87 definitely has some shining moments for those guys. There's one in here, I haven't found it yet. At the time I got it was very, very rare. And that was one of their early shows from a venue called Troopers Hall in San Francisco, 1966, when the Grateful Dead were basically a punk rock band with some cheesy Farfisa organ, and they played fast. They weren't really like snarling or pissed off, but they were really fast. They were fast. They were speedy. And they had that Farfisa organ going, and that was some pretty good stuff. You could hear those early Dead shows like 65, 66, and never really dream that they would evolve into what they evolved into. So that was one thing that kind of made the Dead fun, was collecting these different eras of them and the different ways they sounded from one year to another. And then, of course, the long, slow, tragic decline, which is when I lost interest. You know, by the early 90s, I think it was pretty apparent that it was basically over. And I think 95 is when Jerry died. So, yeah, I kind of gave up around then. But that still left, 26 years of really good and sporadically really good music to document on cassette. So while that's going on with the Deadheads, at the same time, we are catering to perhaps the polar opposite of the Deadheads, which was represented by this little stack here, the hardcore kids, specifically the straight edgers. Now this, right out the gate, was more up my alley, you know, because I was cutting my teeth on punk rock, which of course evolved into hardcore, and that was my thing. That was the yin to my yang. Fast, loud, furious, distorted, pissed off, kind of like the set that I'm playing next week, or in 3 days at the devotional. Yeah, fast, loud, pissed off, furious, distorted. That's what I like. So it's just a natural that when we moved to Connecticut and opened up the store that, you know, we and the hardcore kids would find each other instantly. And, you know, obviously straight edge, pretty antithetical to the Grateful Dead lifestyle. The music, pretty much antithetical to the Grateful Dead music. The look, the venues, just about everything on the surface of it was the exact opposite. But the one thing that I had no problem with, that I really never really thought about was a great similarity between the two, was my own personal ethic. Each one of them, at least at the time, now we all know that things got very corporate as time went on, but at that time, each one was basically independent, totally original, totally supported the DIY ethic. Each one represented a completely separate culture, or at least an attempt at a separate culture in a different way of doing things, separated from the dominant paradigm. Each one of them was rebellious in their own fashion. Each one had its own language. You had two completely different cultures running in parallel, but they had all of these things in common. They had so many similarities with their outlook and their attitude, and that's what I liked. That's what I really liked about it, and that's why I never saw any conflict or contradiction between loving both the Grateful Dead and punk/hardcore. You know, it's like everybody, in my opinion, and the way I saw things, everybody was moving towards a similar goal. And in my opinion, also, basically, if it's good, it's good. If I like it, it's good. And if it's good, it's good. That's just the way I get into it, you know? I just get into music on its own merits and culture on its own merits. And if it resonates with me, that's all I need. That's really all I need. So I see no contradiction whatsoever between a stack of hardcore and a lot of it's straight edge. I mean, what do we got here? We got Wide Awake. We got Violent Children. Classic Connecticut stuff like Lost Generation. These great old compilations from the mid-'80s. One from Canada. Don't know where the other one was from. Dead Kennedys. I was talking about Dead Kennedys not too long ago. Here's the original cassette of Frankenchrist. In its black and white punk rock glory. It's black and white punk rock glory. Hatebreed. We mentioned Hatebreed before. Here's the first Hatebreed demo. I still got one of these left. It was all genuine, legit, heartfelt, youth-driven attempts to change things and to consciously change things for the better. Each group of people had their own different ideas about how to do it, but they were each going for it. And I always liked that, and I always respected that. So that's why I'm okay with the Grateful Dead, and I'm okay with the hardcore kids. And even the adults, too. Let's have a drink to getting old and staying true. Of course, the punchline to all of this, and Stephen Young makes a valid point, Black Flag. Greg Ginn of Black Flag, ardent Deadhead. Lee Ronaldo of Sonic Youth, big-time Deadhead. You know? And I'm sure there are others that I can't think of off the top of my head, but the two cultures could peacefully coexist and lead to greater creativity. So I'm all about that. So anyway, the punchline, as it goes right back around to the very beginning, is I've got boxes full of this stuff. Boxes. And as much as I love my Grateful Dead collection of cassettes, I'm going to pare it down to just the bare minimum. Like the shows that if I pick up the box and say, oh yeah, that was a good one. Okay, that's a keeper. If I look at this one and say, oh, I don't remember that one at all. That one's going to go. And the same thing with the hardcore demos. Like the Wide Awake demo, this was one of the very first demos we ever sold at Trash American Style. So there's a lot of sentimental appeal to that. Plus there were my Brookfield little brothers. You know, we were probably only 4 or 5 years age different, but at the time that made a big difference. I love them. Wide Awake, we're keeping that. But then, well, like this Go Play in Traffic compilation. Actually, it's Affirmative Action is the band. Affirmative Action, love you guys, but I haven't played this cassette in probably 30 years. It's gotta go. All Fall Down, I remember the band, don't remember them. Lovely people, I'm sure. It's been sitting in a box in my basement for 11 years. And before that, it was sitting on a shelf in my back room for 16 years. This stuff does no good just sitting on shelves and sitting in boxes. It's all got to find homes. So my mission, my mandate as I go through all this stuff is to parse out the essentials and keep them, and anything that's not essential to my daily life is gonna go. So that's why I invite you to keep a careful eye on a thing that's not essential to my daily life is gonna go. So that's why I invite you to keep a careful eye on events like the Counterweight Red Scroll Record Fair, October 8th, and the Danbury Record and CD Expo, October 21st, because I am unlimbering a lot of this stuff. This stuff has not been offered for sale in literally decades. Another once-in-a-lifetime event, the Malcolm Tent Personal Collection, is going to be sitting on a table with price tags. Because this stuff needs to be enjoyed. It does no good just sitting here in my basement. I've enjoyed it. I've loved it. I've gotten my use out of it. Time for it to go. So there you go. You got the infomercial bit at the end, but hopefully you guys dug what I was saying about the parallels between the Deadheads and the hardcore kids. You know, it was just two different means to what might have even been two different ends. You know what I mean? But the end effect one way or another was supposed to be change, and change for the better. So I'm down for that. There is nothing wrong with that. Hope you guys dug that. Needless to say, I am not doing Tent Talks Tunes next week because I will be in Charlotte, North Carolina at rehearsals with Antiseen for the 40th anniversary Gala Extravaganza Blowout. But Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, I'm pretty sure I'll be back week after next. So what that means is that in about 333 hours, 335 hours, 335 hours, I do hope to be back here, keeping the spirit of cable TV alive. And I've seen all the comments coming in. I'll be reading them after I sign off. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.